Hello, and welcome to the Interjections podcast, subtitled "The Undiscovered Decade." It's a podcast that where we cover hidden gems throughout the past, or not the past decade, a decade 30 years ago. Every film we cover is 30 years old this month, and now we're in November 1994. We're covering a film called Oleanna, which I'm delighted to tell you the origins of in a few minutes. We have this thing that we've been trying this fifth season to see if we can liven things up by having us do a quick synopsis so we don't have to reference back and miss a character. Not that this episode we're going to really miss anything, but
The patent pending Interjections podcast Wheel of Exposition.
So we are in November, like I mentioned, and so everyone was going to get 3 chances divided by 4, obviously, through the year to describe the film. So we're down to 2 people. So honestly, this is the last wheel because we only have 2 months left and we have 2 spins left. So it's either going to be Jeff or Corey.
Who's it gonna be?
I've been hoping that
Well,
we would have narrowed it down so that, say, Jeff got the last 3 months, but it randomized enough that everyone split around for the year.
Just flip a coin.
So it's basically flip a coin.
It's fitting since this film only has 2 characters.
Yeah. Which one's John?
Are you John or Carol?
I don't know. So, we'll figure it out.
I told you.
Oh boy, it's me. Oh boy.
Corey's a big man guy.
I bet you did. So, Oleanna is the film version of a play by David Mamet. Mamet also wrote and directed the film version. And it is about 2 characters, John and Carol. John is a professor. Carol is a disgruntled student who's failing his class. She goes to talk to him about that, and the two have an overly pretentious existential discussion about the nature of education itself, wherein John, played by William H. Macy, describes some philosophical examples, shall we say, that Carol, played by Debra Eisenstadt, takes wildly out of context to the point where some might say, how do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I mean exactly what I mean by that.
Right. It's very much a point of 2 people saying a lot but not understanding each other. And the whole time, John is in the process of purchasing a house with his off-screen wife, present only through various phone calls that interrupt whatever discussion is happening. Conveniently. It is very much a play on film, and we'll get into that.
Oh yeah, it's very stagey.
And then, from the discussion that they have, Carol then goes to the tenure board to file a complaint against him due to the things that he said allegedly. Or
one little note: she's not on her own. She often brings up the group that she's with, or that she's often associated with.
That is important.
I feel like she's kind of being like pushed in that direction by her friends or whatever that group is.
That is true. Valid point. She's not acting alone, but she's the one that we see on screen. So, because this is very much what they call a two-hander, because it's just two actors.
Two-hander chamber piece.
Right. With the exception of like a few extras at the beginning and the end to set that, hey, we're out of college and kids are playing football. It's just the 2 of them for 90 minutes ranting. And that's it. Much. And then
it reminds me of the old podcast that Cory and I used to do. It's 2 people ranting for 90 minutes.
And right, exactly. And then things come to a head
questionable
eventually.
People getting into an esoteric discussion.
Right. Yeah. 2 bad people getting into
a worse situation.
Worse situation.
Yeah, because I think you fluctuate back and forth between where your allegiance lies on who is right. So
I was not sympathetic to either.
I think that's
the point. I think that's
I don't think you're supposed to side with either one of them.
Yeah. I mean, they're
Yeah.
a bit obnoxious. John thinks he's high and mighty, and
He's a very highbrow professor.
Carol is coming into her own to become high and mighty. So you can definitely think that.
because of his teachings, right? Are you if you're a pretentious teacher and your students are becoming pretentious, did you do your job right, or did you do it wrong?
Or maybe
That's
this
because
is
she
human
read his
nature.
book.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all a little bit of an asshole at points in our life.
Not as such.
Well, I think also like it might be a reflection of like how each are conditioned. Like one's conditioned by his job and career and his aspirations, and the other one's conditioned by their upbringing, education, and like groupthink. Because
Yeah.
she
And
often did
generational groupthink.
bring up that she was involved with a group on the outside, and they're telling her what's what, and she's telling him that. It's like,
No,
are these
absolutely.
people individuals, or or are they just pieces of a bigger machination of society just going sideways?
For sure, yeah. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history thing. I wanted to tell you about the origin of the name Oleanna, but first I want to mention that this play that Mamet wrote came in the shadow of the Anita Hill hearings for Clarence Thomas when he was being questioned if he was a valid subject for the Supreme Court. If you don't know about this Anita Hill hearings, she was working under him and accused him of sexual harassment. And then the people that were going through the trial didn't maybe do their due diligence. And there were a lot of finger pointing and blaming, and there's questions about the veracity of the actual accusations. And there's theories about pushing things under the table so that Clarence Thomas could get pushed through. I'm not making any judgment. This is just what I've heard, I've absorbed over the time of hearing about these hearings. But it's clearly in like Mamet wanted to write something like this, and then these came up as well. And so what happens behind closed doors? Like you have the power of the professor, you're welcoming to students, but then what happens when no one sees the actual interaction? And then you have things like the groupthink, where they think they know what's happening, but they may have had experiences in the past with other people, and they're taking those into account. And then there's also the accused viewpoint, where maybe they think they did something perfectly innocently, and it's taken out of context. Or perhaps it is the beginning, the seeds of a potential issue that they don't even realize themselves is possible. So I think that's at least my interpretation of the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely a power dynamic examination. And if anyone's familiar with the way Mamet plays are written, like he actually has a metronome during rehearsals to get the
Heard about
rhythm
that.
right for these actors. It very much felt like you're watching a play. Like it's just
Yeah.
the play on screen, they're just walking through rooms, basically.
Mm-hmm. Which is more
but
than the stage play actually usually does. It's usually just his office, and there aren't two rooms. Sometimes they can expand, but
yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I've never seen this on stage, but I would like it.
I
I also didn't realize apparently William H. Macy originated the role of
Mhm.
John.
in the Chicago production. He
Yeah.
didn't bring it to Broadway, but the versions of this play that have happened, because there's an interesting coupling throughout its major productions.
Yeah, he
Oh
was
yeah,
on.
he did bring it to Broadway. It was him and Mamet's second wife, Rebecca Pidgeon, who actually did the music on the movie.
Well, was that the off-Broadway or the Broadway? Because there was a
So
sorry.
I have a list that I wrote down just for this reason. They did it in Cambridge in '92. I forgot he was. I wrote the note that he was Bobby in the American Buffalo production in Chicago before it came to Broadway. That's the one he didn't originate on Broadway, but he did technically originate in Chicago. But then he did a Cambridge production in '92 of this, and then they brought it to the Orpheum on Broadway or off Broadway in '92 as well. And it was the same two people, but then they replaced Rebecca Pidgeon with Eisenstadt for the movie. Sorry to dominate the conversation too, but
No.
I also saw this in 1998 on stage because my mom directed it at
Oh.
Villagers.
Huh.
But yeah, so I saw this as a 12-year-old.
I mean, it doesn't really have
I haven't
any
seen it since then.
language until the end, so it's
Yeah.
not typically profane.
True.
It's more like about the intellectual jousting between the two.
Mhm.
I could see some of the criticisms about the movie being like the Carol character is somewhat inconsistent with what she understands and what she doesn't understand. Like towards the beginning, there's these wonderful eloquent terms that John's throwing out there, like a term of art. She has some of the definition of that. Actually, he can't even really give a clear definition on it. I think it says indictment at the end, and she asked what that means. I'm like,
He's the one that's done it.
have you never heard of an indictment?
It's very interesting because like you can't tell if she genuinely doesn't understand or if she's egging him on to try to make him to say
That's the
something more, incriminating possibly.
Hmm.
And it's tough, like the way her performance is, because I mean this was Debra Eisenstadt's first film role, and you can definitely
Sort of
that.
only film role.
Right, yeah, she's more of a producer, and like this was just happened to be because I think her husband or some other Einstadt was one of the production managers.
Oh,
Just
interesting. Okay.
watching the credits.
Yeah, yeah. I saw an
Uh,
Eisenstadt name. Her
Although
husband's
that's
a
also just
documentary producer now, Brett Morgan. He did that
yeah
Cobain documentary montage of Heck,
Oh
yeah
yeah.
and she produced it. So she's essentially a co-director with him. And she
yeah.
did that Jane Goodall documentary, Jane, or they did.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But all this to say that she did a good job, but it was very much goes back to it feeling like a play where it felt like they were just saying lines, and her performance seemed kind of wooden, but I wasn't sure if that was a choice because of Carol's, how Carol is supposed to be played, or if it's something that, that was, yeah, I'm not sure if it was a choice or if it was like written in the script that she's supposed to be fairly neutral on everything in her delivery.
I want to say it was
Um,
a choice because it's vicariously aggravating for the viewer.
Hmm.
mm,
You can kind of be in his headspace in a way.
She seems shrill, but she's also supposed to be a child who doesn't know what she wants.
right.
So
Yeah,
you
she
can kind
talks
of take
smart,
it
but
though.
like isn't exactly
Right.
there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're also supposed to think William H. Macy talks big, but might not even know himself, even at 40 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
And this
like
is
the
what the
kind of
So,
movie's
meeting in the middle.
about.
They both talk big, but they're both kind of dumb.
right.
Yeah. They're hiding behind big collegiate words. Papers on papers on papers.
Hmm.
Buy my book. Buy my book.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. I'd forgotten about this from when I saw it as a kid, that he has a book that she's taken personal offense to. And I think that's the thing he hates the most, that anyone would not like his writing.
Did he not
So
make it part
honestly,
of the
like
That's
curriculum
not
as well, which is even more pretentious?
that's
Remember
not a
how
stand-in.
Chuck did that? I mean, Chuck wrote books on cinematography, so why not teach what you already know?
I
I
almost
think it's
feel like
perfectly fine to do that.
there are
yeah,
parts
I
in the
think
movie where I
like
feel like this is almost autobiographical for Mamet in a way that his dialogue is so literate. That no, not like that. His
Yeah.
dialogue is so literate that I could see somebody reading one of his scripts, one of his early scripts, and being like, you have to not dumb it down, but maybe like bring the language down a little bit. It's a little too highbrow and pedantic, which is a word that's thrown around. Because he used a word, I think he uses paradigm at one point. She's like, and she asked for the definition of it, and
What's a
she goes, why didn't
paradigm?
you just say that? Why didn't you just say that instead? And I'm like, I feel like a lot of his detractors have told him this over the years, and he's
How
like,
many people? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
show you the difference between erudite and uninformed. You watch.
Hmm. Well, this is
People
why I said this is kind of your guy, Cory, because
I love Mamet.
I've read your writing, and sometimes you throw vocabulary words in just for the sake of showing that you know them, which isn't that big of a deal to me, but
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, people trying to get highbrow, potentially sexist literature written by a specific author banned from college things. Yeah, no, Mamet wouldn't know anything about that.
Mhm.
Because that's another thing and why this is somehow kind of timely. Going back to where you're not supposed to exactly feel sympathy for one party over the other. Um, part of Carol's arc is her and her group are moving to, they have an entire list of books they want removed from the
Mm.
college library,
Right.
including his, which is what sends him over. But like the fact that a group of students at a, assumably prestigious university are trying to ban the books at the place of learning seems,
Hmm.
specifically timely right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you have a particularly favorite piece of dialogue or monologue? Because I have one.
I had one and then I lost it as soon as
There
you
was
asked.
one, yeah, no, there was one that
I'll think
stuck
of it.
out, and I was like, I'm gonna write this down, and then my phone was dead. So
So mine was he's giving her his base categorization of stupidity. He's like, for instance, it would be if I were a pilot and I zoned out during a flight. That whole dialogue I thought was riveting.
Yeah. I think the thing I'm thinking of is around then. It's basically him telling her of his past when he was being told he was stupid. I took that to heart because I had a teacher tell me that I wasn't good enough for history AP, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that drove me to take a history minor in college because I wanted to prove that I was smart enough. So it's interesting that telling someone you're not good enough will drive them to prove themselves sometimes.
Right.
And so I thought that section was pretty good. Kind of when they're walking in the hallway. I think that's right before the pilot.
The analogy, yeah.
Yeah. I'd forgotten that the reason his wife keeps calling is because he has a
realtor
surprise
is waiting?
party. Well, he has a surprise party.
Well, she says it's the realtor's waiting.
Mm-hmm.
You find out surprise party.
Yeah. So he turns into a dick
Yeah.
accidentally. That's why you should never surprise anybody, honestly. You
Mm.
gotta be really good
They
at,
don't become
like, you're not, the surprise party should be they're naturally coming home and you know they're definitely coming home. They're not stopping at a bar on the way home or staying
Right.
2 extra hours with a student for some reason.
which again, behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Which just doing that could make them seem sketchy.
Well,
Right.
it doesn't help when he kind of pins her against.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, all of this, she's bringing all of these things to him, and everything's unraveling around him until ultimately he
Yeah. She proves him
shoots him.
right.
Yeah, she proves him right.
Is he at the end of his rope is why he does it, or is it that he was always going to do it?
Well,
Right.
I don't want to.
Well, I think it was a
Yeah, that's up to
realization what was going on that set him off, because like he was just being like a professor, like my tenure's ruined, but then he realizes like there's rape charges a little
Mhm.
later, and he's like, oh, what's going on?
It's funny because
Because he didn't know.
the whole time you're just thinking like, okay, he's a male professor, she's a female student. You're like, there's only one way this could possibly go awry, and if he acts like a predator at any point, he's going down. So
Mhm.
But here's the
first
thing, like,
tip-off
she
is
even
when he
brings it up
says-
herself. Oh, yeah.
the first tip off is when he says, "I like you," and you're like, that's gonna get misconstrued in so many ways.
Mhm. What were you gonna say?
Yeah.
That's so
'Cause
interesting.
she says it herself, like legally, like by the legal definition, what he did was,
Right.
which like might be coming from like the group think from like whoever's involved with her outside of
Mm-hmm.
these conversations that she's having with her professor. So like
Mm-hmm.
she's not wrong, but like
Yeah, they're both right, but also
not exactly
wrong.
right either. But
Right.
like the
This is so
situation,
wrong.
like this is probably like why probably within our generation, like we have all these like meetings or rules set up so to prevent things like this.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time I kept thinking, does he have a secretary that can be present during this? And also at the beginning, has a motive in order to kind of entrap him because she wants a higher grade.
Possibly.
So that could be a motivating factor.
Yeah, you could view it that way. And you could also view him wanting to give her a grade that's higher than she's getting just because he's benevolent and doesn't really care. And grades don't technically matter in the long run. Like no one's gonna look back on this class in 20 years and see that she got a C.
Right.
You know, like
Unless she's looking to
but
go
she
to grad
doesn't
school, and she's
understand
going to need
that.
it.
Right. And one thing can unravel her entire life, which then she does to him.
Right.
But they kind of both do it to themselves too. Like if this was a different thing and the person wasn't forgiving and they didn't want to up her grade, she'd still unravel. So
Like you
it's
said, at the end, it becomes
butterfly.
it becomes a question of whether he was provoked or whether it was inevitable that he was going to act like that.
Right.
Yeah.
There was an original version of the show when it was in Cambridge. They have the John character read the confession that she's written up for him, and that's how it ends instead of well then. And that's that's the last line. They're just sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's very
It's like, oh my
dry.
god.
Yeah, that was a
Right.
weird ending.
Yeah. I think it's
Oh
fine.
my
Well, not
God.
weird. I'd say dissatisfying.
Right. I
Well,
think that's what it's supposed to do.
Is it just me, or I kind of wish they didn't have any shots outside of his office or the university at all?
Oh, with the football kid catching
Well,
the ball.
that and there's just a shot of her walking to his office. There's a tracking shot, and I'm like,
Right.
I almost don't even want that. I would rather be distilled just down to that location.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, it is interesting because like you then get to the one point where she runs out of the office, like you do get to see the reaction and his reaction to outsiders seeing what's going on.
Right. In the
Just
play,
like,
she's just off stage and screaming, and you see his reaction to her.
yeah.
So I think this expands your mindset
The
without,
best you can.
yeah, without necessarily giving it to you. I don't know. It would have felt more claustrophobic if you never see anything outside of the door, like them walking around the hallways. That one person hands him the papers.
They probably also like got special permission to use that location. So like we'll show the exterior of the building, give you guys some credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
movie.
And they had some college students that were like, "Hey, you want to be extras?" Because none of them
Right.
are credited.
Right.
You look on the IMDb page, none of like technically there's like 40 extras in this movie, and
Well, they got
nobody's
no
listed.
speaking roles.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys kind of feel like she could be in the right at some point. It's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
Because the reviews of this back in '94 were really leaning into the fact that Mamet definitely chose John is right when making this. The reviews of the original Broadway show were more like it's up to the audience, and there were fights apparently in intermission that people were going off on each other trying to debate the play. This was
Wow.
like kind of a phenomenon when it was on stage, and then the reviews of this are like it's very clear that he's made Carol indefensible and John has been ruined. Like you
Yeah.
can't possibly see anything else.
I guess
But
it's hard to think of John as like a Mamet surrogate.
right.
Like that's his avatar in the play, but
Hmm.
She comes on a little strong, which is her major character flaw.
Hmm.
Like it's the type of thing where, it's two people that are unwilling to listen to each other, but she seems less willing to listen.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, the quote I have from one of the reviews that's at least on Wikipedia is Carol is viciously manipulative or seriously self-deluded. So
Could be
she
true.
cannot be right. And either it's very clear what the slippery slope of the sexual harassment is, or it's toward her underwritten state of mind. Either way, it's hopelessly vague. But I think it's pretty clear. Like you're supposed to interpret it up to you.
I
Your
mean,
own
if we went by today's standards, like
It's supposed to be a big.
he would have been in the wrong in the beginning because like he did cross the line by hand placement, tone,
closing
and
the
like
door.
Yeah.
use of adjectives to describe ladies
Hmm.
as little pet nicknames.
Oh,
Because like today that would be a no-go.
funny story. I told Rebecca, she calls me baby all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know how the inciting incident at the end of Oleanna is? It's that he calls his wife baby. And she's like, do I have to stop calling you baby? Is this wrong? Like, I don't care.
No, I think
Well,
it's,
no,
that's
It's
where
just
where
funny.
it proves the point where
Because
like she's like the bad guy, but turns him into the bad guy because like he loses his shit.
Right.
it's because she's
Like, that's just where the
Right.
where self-control just goes out the window.
Yeah.
But like you kind of see that from the beginning of this movie with his tones, like how he reacts to her, where he often like pauses and tries to calm himself down
Hmm.
to talk coherently, but underneath he's got some like potential anger issues.
Hmm. I think he's giving a very good performance that way. Like, there's levels to his anger and other emotions.
that the whole baby thing at the end was just her taking a step too far and trying to actually control his life after breaking him down from the outside.
Yeah, there you go. It's a matter of control. Who actually controls the situation?
It's a term of art.
Ah,
Mm.
there you go.
So do you guys want to know what Oleana means?
Yes.
So
Enlighten me.
I'll go briefly, but apparently there was this violinist from Norway named Ole Bull who was on the level of Paganini with his speed and clarity of playing, So he was very famous, got very rich, and in 1852 he obtained a large tract of land in northern central Pennsylvania in the Alleghenies, and he founded a colony in New Norway. And there were 4 communities, one of which was called Oleanna.
Mm.
And then there was a folk song called Oleanna that came up in Norway a few years after that, which was making fun of him and the quixotic nature of wanting to make a utopia, because Bull wanted to make what was essentially a utopian society. Like they're all self-serving, like everyone helps each other, like all these utopias in the past that have not necessarily worked. Oleanna the folk song would make fun of the desire to be perfect, but inevitably you cannot be what you intended to be. And so it became famous in America when Pete Seeger adapted it and translated it into English, and several other people would sing the song. And so Mamet took the name from the folk song, which implied desire for utopia. And that kind of goes into both of their mindsets. John hopes that his teaching can make an impact on people and that his life was not wasted. And she hopes that we won't be awful to each other. But you might say that she incited her own incident by bringing it on, by even being there. So
Right.
is our desire to go to a place that could be a utopia inevitably going to cause the downfall of that utopia? That's the point of the song.
Yeah, I kept waiting for like, when's Oleanna gonna show up?
Right. I thought her name was Oleanna. I'd forgotten. Like I never knew what the meaning was.
It's Carol Oleanna.
Yeah.
This movie's a sham.
Oleanna University.
It is a fictional university. I thought it was like going to be Cambridge or something. It felt like that, but they're not using thick accents or anything.
Well, Mamet and
Could you imagine this whole thing with a Boston accent?
yeah.
Oh God.
it's a Tamavat.
What are you doing?
It's called easement.
Now I just want to see Matt Damon as John.
Are you trying to get me this bad?
That'd be good
By
actually,
the tenure?
Right.
because he's a nice guy.
Uh-huh.
Now I want to make that.
I'm trying to get
Hey
tenure.
Matt,
How about
listening.
them apples?
Or Mark Wahlberg. Ooh.
Ooh.
Hey, say
All right.
hey,
Okay,
Rihanna,
let's
Carol,
talk
say
actually-
hello to your mother for me.
It's actually
Dr-
really good.
Dreamcasting Boston accent edition.
Yeah. Some of the famous casts that popped up, they did a revival in I think 2009 with Julia Stiles and Bill Pullman.
That's what it was. Because I was
Mhm.
trying to think of
Oh.
that.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah. And then she had also, I believe, done it in London with, or no, there was another actress. There was a British actress, I think, that did it with Aaron Eckhart
Ooh.
in London.
You know what the weird part is? I feel like it's a good thing they went with William H. Macy because he doesn't come off as entirely sympathetic. So if it was Bill Pullman, I think I'd been on his side the whole time.
Yeah, he has that hangdog expression.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
very
William-
like, I don't want to fuck up, but
And yet he does.
William H. Macy has the expression of a man who knows that he looks like he did something wrong and is constantly trying to explain his way out of it.
It could be because of Fargo, but he always looks contrite to me.
he kind of
What
got
does that mean?
pigeonholed
What
in
is that? What do you mean by that?
type.
The term that I'm using, contrite,
What does it mean?
it means a term of remorse.
Means everything.
Why don't you just say that? Why can't you
Why
just
can't you
the
just
word?
say
Why can't you just say sad?
Well, anyway.
Do we like this movie?
So I'm giving it a B minus. I don't think it's the strongest of Mamet plays.
Mhm.
Movies. Yes, plays / movies.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, I was engaged during the whole thing. I found the whole thing quite provocative, and the dialogue was as usual hyper literate. So and that's what I usually watch Mamet stuff for. I'm a very dialogue driven person, so I don't really mind that it's kind of stage bound.
Yeah, especially more so than even something like Glengarry Glen Ross, where they're clearly in the rental office.
It doesn't feel, you know what, because they go to the bar and everything, that doesn't
Yeah.
feel claustrophobic.
It's supposed to be like a corner of the stage,
Yeah.
or like American Buffalo is in the thrift shop. But there's so much going on in the thrift shop that it never feels like you're
Yeah, it's
overwhelmed
true.
by
I
it.
never felt that either.
Yeah, I think I liked it enough to give it a B. I think we could interpret Eisenstadt's performance as a little undercooked, but I lean towards what Jeff's opinion is, that she intended to be, quote, shrill. And I think William H. Macy's performance definitely dominates the film, makes it actually worth watching.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm gonna go with a B minus too, but only because, like I said, like Eisenstadt's performance was, it felt like just watching two people arguing on stage. And there was more, like, she could still be shrill and not sound like she's listening to the lines. And that was my thing. That's all. That's all. I mean, other than that, script was very Mamet, very like.
What about you, Jimmy?
I'd give it a C plus.
Ooh.
Jimmy's the freshest
lower
watched.
ratings that Jimmy's given.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just like it was I don't know, it just wasn't quite my jam, especially with the pacing and like the build up, and then like the ending was kind of like, it kind of fell flat for me. I personally would have liked to see it like more like Rashomon, and from other people's perspectives. Like I'm sitting there going like, why isn't there anybody eavesdropping outside his door?
Well, then you
This
would
whole time.
like The Last Duel,
Actually, yeah, the last duel's real good.
which is very much like
Yeah,
that.
no, I do
That's
like The
what
Last
you want.
Duel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we watched
We
it
saw
together.
that together.
Yeah.
Thought maybe you forgot we saw another movie together again.
No,
Like,
of course not, buddy.
Because you watch so much.
Of course not, pal.
Right, don't bum everybody out. So there are other films this month.
Oh, there are. Yeah, right.
Yeah, there were. You're not gonna like what my number 5 is. Let's put it that
Oh
way.
boy. Well, you hate Stargate, so what could get worse?
Star Trek Generations is one of the worst
Yeah.
in the franchise. Okay, well, there's defenders of it.
Yeah. I mean, I like Star Trek as a franchise, but we watched the Undiscovered Decade, the namesake of this podcast, and it's nice. It's a nice hidden gem. Whereas Star Trek Generations, trying to pass the baton between the old school and the new next generation, does not work in any way.
Not at all.
Real bad.
The way they tried to intermingle the two casts, it's almost like they're at cross purposes. Matter of fact, there's a bunch of subplots that really have no bearing on the plot at all. Like the emotion chip that gets put into Data doesn't matter at all.
Right.
It's a complete non sequitur.
Especially because he's spent 7 years of the show trying to just learn emotion.
Right.
So let's speed it up, I guess.
Honestly, the sad part is, even though they're trying to pass on to the next generation, quote unquote, the best scenes in the movie are with Shatner.
Mm-hmm.
In sorry, I forget what that Rapture universe is called, but
Whatever.
the Nexus.
Sure.
Malcolm McDowell's kind of given like nothing to do as the villain. He's barely in it. Yeah, it's a big disappointment.
That was the movie that started my family's tradition of going to the theater on Christmas.
Oh yeah,
Christmas
these
Day.
things are coming out around Christmas.
Yeah, so that was the first one we did.
Luckily, the next generation had better movies to follow.
First Contact's maybe the best Star Trek movie.
Yeah, debatable.
That's 2 years away.
Yeah.
So they come back.
Number 4, we had talked about a previous adaptation. This was going to be like almost like the 90s version of Dark Universe. So Kenneth Branagh did an adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is more faithful than most because they have the bookends in the Arctic, which I was happy to see.
Nice.
But the movie itself is unforgivably campy. And it's almost kind of a vanity project for Kenneth Branagh.
Did he play Victor?
Yeah, but he's running around shirtless the whole time, and he has, ripped abs and everything. And
Well, he's got to show him off somehow. He had no other outlet.
yeah,
Couldn't show his wife.
he's showing something else.
Anyway.
Anywho,
Yeah.
I like the design of De Niro as the monster. I thought he gave an interesting performance. The makeup was good. The movie itself is nowhere near on the craftsmanship level of Bram Stoker's, but you got to admit, even though you don't really care for that movie too much.
Yeah. Rewatching it for the podcast, I appreciate the technology. I do want to see this.
Okay.
See if I like the adaptation of it.
Yeah. Like I said, most adaptations leave off the bookends, which I think are very important.
Yes.
Number 3 is Leon, or in the States, it's called The Professional.
Mm.
Very much one of the Luc Besson style over substance movies.
Mhm.
I think this is most well known for Gary Oldman just chewing the scenery as the villain. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny because he's a stark contrast to Jean Reno, who's very sedate and sober
Mhm.
as the hero. So you have to have somebody kind of playing to the rafters, which is what Gary Oldman does.
Like,
Little queasy some of the situations that young Natalie Portman's put in the movie.
yeah.
Mm.
Do you remember this? How it's important to our relationship, Corey? A little
No.
bit. It's not very important, but this was the first DVD I ever bought on my own once I was in college.
Oh, at that store in Pennsburg?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then we watched it together
Yeah.
once we got
I
back.
yeah, wasn't a fan, man.
Yeah, you weren't?
I'm still not a fan of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'd seen it. I wanted to own it.
Sentimental value means nothing to Cory.
Yeah.
No, I meant something.
Well, it was a good time we had, right?
Yeah, we watched better movies. We watched like Lady Killers and Blazing.
Okay.
It was the
Okay.
beginning of a beautiful friendship.
It was one of the first movies we watched together, though. It has that going for it.
Exactly.
Without The Professional, this might not be happening right now.
Yeah, so thank you, Luc Besson. Yes, you're very welcome.
Jimmy's like, oh God,
You're welcome.
why
Thank
does that
you.
movie exist? I could have been sleeping in.
So here's another adaptation that came out this month. Interview with the Vampire.
Ooh.
Adaptation of Anne Rice.
Oh,
Did he get the job?
Yeah. I'm assuming
When he got the job.
Yeah. Me, Tristan, and Jimmy went to the memorial site of Anne
Ooh,
Rice
right.
before she died.
That's right.
He had already
oh
bought
yeah, it was my bad.
land in New Orleans, and then she died a month later.
No, 3 days later.
Was it 3 days later?
Yeah,
Okay,
we flew back and she died from New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, but we were in the mausoleum and we were telling the guy was telling us that apparently she became a writer after the death of her child at a very young age. So in her mind, it encases that child forever, kind of like a vampire. I just read the book the past month or so, and it's very clear that she's going through a lot of things about the death of her child. And the Kirsten Dunst character is clearly her getting through those things. I did not like this movie. It's my least favorite Tom Cruise, probably.
Really? I thought he was great.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I think I remember a lot of friends like in high school saying that like they were okay with Interview with the Vampire, but like when Queen of the Damned came out when we were in high school, they felt like whoever they selected for Lestat for that role, they're like, yeah, better choice.
Stuart Townsend, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. Like Tom Cruise is a little too showy. So
He's a villain. What do you want him to be?
technically we're all
During
villains.
the Victorian era, what do you want him to be?
Technically, that's what the Interview with the Vampire is very similar to Oleanna. We're all our own enemies.
Mm.
It's kind of the point of the book.
Only you can't hold up a mirror to a vampire.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
I do kind of want to, after reading the book, I want to watch this show to see what it does.
Yeah.
Differently. And it expands upon it.
The casting has me intrigued because Eric Bogosian's playing the Christian Slater role.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be sort of a sequel, like it's a second interview. So he's like, this is what happened later.
Doesn't Christian Slater die at the end?
Apparently Antonio Banderas' character saves Christian Slater's character after the events of the film because he comes in and sees this happening and stops it from happening. And then Eric Bogosian is an older version of that same character.
Crazy because he's kind of the villain in the movie.
I know. He's the real villain, but that's the point too.
That's a great scene, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
When Louis goes on that warpath and starts killing everybody in the theater of vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give it another chance. I think you'll like it better now. That's okay. My number one movie of the month, I know you've seen. I know we've all seen. It's The Santa Claus with Tim Allen, which is a perennial classic now.
So good.
I think around the time he had the number one show and the number one movie
Mm-hmm.
at the same time.
He's on top of the world.
It's funny because nowadays I feel like comedians, like comic actors at least, they only go for the joke, so they don't know when to kind of reel it back for the pathos. I feel like Tim Allen knew how to do that in this movie pretty expertly early on in the one of his first starring roles, because
Mhm.
there's some really heartwarming scenes between him and Charlie.
Yeah, I think he actually knew how to act back
But he's actually, and he is genuinely funny in the movie.
then. I think he's always
It
had
is-
good comedic timing, and I think the assembly of the cast in Home Improvement and the people they chose for this movie were spot on.
Yeah.
Everyone has good chemistry.
Judge Reinhold's great.
Yeah. Bernard, you know,
Yes.
a young
David Krumholtz.
yeah,
David Krumholt's great.
he steals the movie a little bit.
The world building in this is fantastic, which is
Mhm.
probably why they went on to make 2 sequels and a TV series.
Right.
I forgot about the TV series.
Yeah. And they explain things in a way that isn't I guess pedantic like Red One.
Yeah.
I need to
Red
see
One
that.
feels bloated.
Yeah.
Whereas Red One's bloated, this is actually charming.
Right. Yeah, there are things that they don't need to explain. There are things that they explain just for the sake of the movie, but it doesn't feel like it's
It
just
feels
forced, I should say.
like, like they're explaining it to the kids, that are watching the movie, and like if you're if you bring a kid to the North Pole, he'd be like, "What's that? What's that? What's that?" And they're just like knocking it off, like this is not the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, this is how it happens. This is here, have
I
some hot
like how-
chocolate, like this.
Go to
Just
bed.
chill out for a bit.
Yeah, have a snow globe.
I like how in the movie, like, you'd expect the Calvin character, which is Tim Allen, to be cynical about Santa, but at the
Mhm.
beginning, he's getting into an argument with Charlie's mom about, why'd you tell Charlie there's no Santa? I believe in Santa.
Yeah, he's just trying to be a good dad.
Yeah. And then when Charlie's like, there's somebody on the roof, and he's like, all right, stay in bed. I'm getting a bat.
Yeah, and he's like being realistic, but he's also got
Yeah.
that childhood
But he's also trying to
innocence
protect his
still
innocence
inside.
in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that about the character. He's complex.
Yeah, I think this is good timing too, because this is when we still had, I mean, maybe this is because it's our age, but we still have that innocence in us. And imagine making this today with like a Will Ferrell. It would have been
That's
way too
what the
cynical.
hell.
Or a Seth Rogen or something.
Seth Rogen. Oh my God, can you imagine a Santa Claus remake with Seth Rogen?
Please
Oh
don't put
God, I smoked too much. Who's
Oh,
on my
no.
roof?
that-
What am I? This is a crazy trip.
Coming Christmas 2025.
Actually, this has one of my favorite comedic quotes.
Hmm.
At one point, Whitney Houston's talking to Calvin, and she's like, "Do you know what he's doing upstairs? He's jumping up and down, acting like he's commanding reindeer." And he's like, "I wasn't asking what Neil was doing. I was asking what Charlie was doing."
Yeah. So many good things about Neil.
Yeah.
When he gets his weenie whistle, the look on
Yes.
his face,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Might go watch that this
Yeah.
week.
You made me want to watch it again.
Get into the spirit.
Yeah. Oof. A perfect film.
And it's only gotten better with age.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those ones you got to put in rotation
Mm-hmm.
on a holiday season.
For sure.
But that takes us to
Oh. Here we go, bud. You
Oh,
got two.
okay.
I have to wake up now.
Oh, all right. Back to Earth. Oh my God. I
Return
know
of the
exactly.
cat.
I know exactly what this is.
Okay, good. I figured.
Oh,
But-
damn it.
But I'm going to well, let's describe here. Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
so
Does
there's a
Jimmy know
blue
what this is?
sky
Oh,
blue
yeah.
background. Sky blue background. There's a man in a suit with glasses. It looks like he could be an Alton Brown type with the way that the face is blurred.
That's a good.
With a woman behind him over his shoulder, and a man with a cat face over it with a aiming a stethoscope on the man in the suit's stomach. So, I mean, this can only be one thing.
Mm-hmm. End of
It's-
days.
End of days. It's no, what was the other, this is Total Recall.
Oh yeah.
It's called Kid.
Sorry, I don't want to give any true lies anymore.
Oh boy.
Oh, you
Yeah.
bastard.
Nice to meet you.
I mean, even if I'd blurred the eyes, would that have thrown you off at all?
No, actually.
Dude, I could.
because
Yeah, he's pretty distinctive. That
I
face.
think
Yeah, this is a famous poster.
this is
from-
this is an iconic poster that we're now getting to the point where
Iconic film.
I don't think I've ever seen the movie.
Neither have
but
I. This is
I
one of
know the
the
picture.
Schwarzeneggers that I've missed.
So
Oh,
it
you
was
just gave it
Schwarzenegger.
away.
Thanks, man.
He knows who
This
it is.
this is Junior.
He was about to say it.
This movie's
Is that
awful.
wait? Is Danny DeVito the cat?
Yes, he is.
Oh
wait, never mind.
no.
Damn
Okay.
Oh,
it.
what's the tagline?
I forgot the tagline was next. I was gonna ask you that.
Well,
Did you
I'm
see
gonna
it
think of-
though?
I did, but I'm gonna think of a better tagline.
Okay, yeah. So nothing is inconceivable.
Nothing is inconceivable.
Inconceivable. Inconceivable.
What?
She
I guess
looks
I guess I
airbrushed.
could have asked you if you remember. who
Welcome to the
was.
stock market.
Oh God. Yeah, that's not bad.
No, that's not.
Not the
If
best.
he was
Isn't
an
he-
actual
isn't he
cat,
like a
this movie
businessman?
called-
Like a businessman
I don't know. I've never seen it.
doing stocks or something.
Oh, so
I don't know.
You wanna know what it is?
Yeah, what's the plot?
So the plot is, and this is outrageous. Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger are playing scientists, okay, who have they're working on a new fertility drug, but they can't get any female test subjects. So Arnold injects it into himself.
Just like I'd do it myself.
Do it myself.
God.
I don't know how the baby comes out. I'm assuming it's a C-section.
Have you never seen the movie?
I've seen it.
Okay.
They don't go into the gory details of how this happened.
Oh, okay.
At
That's disappointing,
one
actually.
point, Arnold is going to Lamaze classes masquerading as a woman. But I see Jeff laughing. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Believe me,
Listen,
this is not.
it's the
not a
it's the
fucking prank.
90s.
Yeah.
This is
We're
not
gonna
a-
have to erase this movie.
As Michael Che says on Weekend Update now, it's the 90s. Whatever.
It's terrible. They had done two really good comedy classics.
Twins.
Arnold and Ivan Reitman. Even Kindergarten Cop's really good.
Oh, I thought you meant Danny DeVito was in one.
Oh yeah, it's twins. But this is ground zero. This is awful.
Mm-hmm.
There's
See,
even a
is
next.
it Cory awful or is it good awful? Like is it
No,
civilian awful?
It's civilian awful.
Okay.
What a good phrase. You may have just seen her face, but did you know who the actress was for bonus points?
Emma Thompson.
Good guess. but- Is that
She's
Emma Thompson?
heavily-
Yeah, it is. Good job.
She's heavily airbrushed to look younger in this too.
I thought it was Gwyneth Paltrow for a second. I just love going
Oh,
from the
that's-
cat to his reaction.
See, I think you could
What?
have just put cats on all their faces. Like
know,
the same cat.
I don't want to overdo it.
She was on
Like this movie.
she was on that show What Happens Later with Andy Cohen, and they were asking her about this movie, and she was like, and they go, so is Arnold a good actor? And she goes, heavens no, he's terrible, but he's a nice man.
That's one of my favorite things about 90s movies. It's just Schwarzenegger is just he plays Joe America in all these movies and nobody questions it.
This is Ivan Reitman's
he's-
follow up with Dave,
he's-
isn't that?
Mm-hmm.
Schwarzenegger is the 90s.
If this wasn't called what it is, what would you call this?
Perfect arrangement.
Horrifying. Horrifying.
Impregnable.
Indecent proposal.
Indecent proposal.
Seahorse.
The human seahorse.
That's so good, Jimmy.
Labor pains.
Sorry, Lindsay Lohan.
Labor of love.
20 years.
Mm.
No,
Labor
it's
of
a laborer.
love. Because she can't have kids, and so he does.
That's a better plot.
Right?
Yeah.
Other than a selfish scientist.
Real poignant. Yeah, right. All right.
Watch, there's gonna be a gritty
My
junior
nipples are-
remake. What?
It's a line from the movie.
Yeah. My nipples are so sensitive. I think Jeff wants to see this.
I'll watch it with you,
I
bud.
kind of do. I kind
I
of.
want to see all of Arnold's movies.
There needs to. I think we need to watch this.
Put it on the list.
It's on the list.
All
The
right.
list is that wastebasket over there.
I have one more for you. This one
Oh.
I'm not going to give away.
Double.
I don't think you're gonna notice one.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for it.
Okay. All right.
There's no cat head.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to overdo it.
No, they've all just got the no face thing. Okay, so it's a family driving through a desert, or someone's driving through a desert. They're all standing in a convertible. Yellow
Nobody's
convertible.
driving.
Nobody's driving. They're all just
They're
standing
careening
there.
off a cliff.
They've parked and
They're-
are
they're-
looking up.
They are about to Thelma and Louise themselves while looking at the moon. A young boy, a woman, a man in a hat who looks like Gallagher, actually. And he's got a cane and he's pointing up toward a
be
giant moon. First
Hmm.
thing that popped up was Moonstruck, but that's not it. That's not
Mm-mm.
this film. This is okay. So I'm guessing it's a family road trip. He's wearing kind of like he's wearing one of those caps that's like, you know, when you see turn of the century immigrants and you know, they're going to manifest destiny or whatever. Obviously, it's a family that's moving out west, stop at a road trip to look up at the moon, and it's just he's pointing to his home planet, and she's desperately trying to see it. I feel like this guy's Andy Kaufman.
Is that your plot?
Like, yes, Andy Kaufman in whatever, you know, this movie walked so that K-Pax could run,
Mm-hmm.
could trip over itself.
Mhm.
Man in the Moon would have been a better option.
Okay.
Now I want to say
My stepfather's an alien.
my stepfather's.
There you go.
I want to say also that could just not be a cane. That could be an umbrella or something that were
Holding up the moon.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
or like a meteor shower joke,
This is the original Moonfall.
right?
Mhm.
Trying to keep it up.
It's also a very nice car, so they're probably rich.
Mm.
I want to say the woman's Mary Steenburgen.
Oh, good job.
Wow.
It was
So who
either her or Sally Field, but
Uh-huh. So who might the guy be? I forget what comes next.
Kevin
Well-
Kline.
Do you want to come up with a tagline just in case I have that next? Because I forget what's next.
I'll say keep Mary Steenburgen in mind and her history.
Shoot for the moon.
That's a good title. Here, I'm just gonna move ahead.
Skyline. Trying to think of what the hell's the name of the.
Oh yeah, take their faces off.
Sometimes the journey of becoming a family can be as difficult as going to the moon. Is that no?
Oh
That Chevy Chase?
no.
Nope. Well,
Oh,
it kind of looks like him in this. If you don't know who it
does.
is.
or is
Think of
that
another tall actor.
Ted Danson?
Yeah.
Cheers.
And her husband.
Huh. Oh, right. I forgot.
Is this where they met?
No.
Okay.
I think it's the only thing they collaborated on. Though.
Well, the
Wait,
last thing he
is
did
he-
was the movie with Whoopi, who was his girlfriend at the time.
Is he?
Oh wait, you know what? They may have.
They may have met on this.
You might be right.
I'm not sure.
Is he playing a blind man?
No.
Okay.
Because he's wearing sunglasses at night, and he's got a cane. Yeah. No, this is the space.
So yeah, you
between.
came up with some pretty good titles. Just gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
You're right.
please.
They met on the set of this film.
Wow.
You were never
Pontiac
gonna get the
Moon.
actual one.
No, I was not.
Yeah. So.
I had a couple moon ones in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's not
Moonwalker.
That's not a Pontiac, so you know. Although the hood ornament looks like a fish. It actually looks like, you remember that Dreamcast game, Seaman?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that hood ornament looks like.
I was thinking of
Does, yeah. I know
I
what
was
you're talking
thinking
about.
of, the fish from that Monty Python, Meaning of Life.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it about?
So okay, Ted Danson is an absent-minded professor. His wife is an agoraphobic, and hijinks ensue when they go to see the moon landing.
Like on location? Like they're going
Like
to
on
the
Stanley Kubrick set.
Ah.
So whether in the desert, because that's where it's filmed.
Wait, so this is a lunar conspiracy movie?
No, it's not. a
No,
lunar
that was a
conspiracy.
joke.
Oh, I don't know anymore.
It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They play it real melodramatically, and Ted Danson, he's got a lot of tools in his kit, but absent-minded professor is not one of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't work when he's not trying to be charming and caddish.
Mm-hmm. So not a good movie, I guess.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, there's a reason this thing got dumped in theaters without much fanfare.
Yeah, I didn't see it in any of the box office at all, so
I think it got
maybe just missed it.
extremely limited release.
Yeah. Oleanna barely came out. This technically has 2 different releases, and
Yeah.
some spots say that it came out in 95, but that's in Germany, according to IMDb. So,
I
and
can
it's
see it
not
getting,
on the
like-
box office for that weekend either.
Got a qualifying run because maybe they thought somebody would get nominated.
I don't know if there just isn't a good spot to read box office anymore ever since that, what was it, boxoffice.com went premium.
Dojo.
Yeah, Box Office Mojo went premium, and you can't really get the numbers anymore because you have to pay to even see what they were. But
Yeah.
who cares about that except industry professionals? So like people like us that just kind of like the stuff, it's not really out there. There's a website that I use for this called The Numbers, and it just a lot of these hidden gems, especially this one, made like $100,000 total, according to the numbers. But it doesn't have an opening weekend, but I looked at another movie that was listed at some point this year, and its opening weekend had a specific number, but you go to that weekend and it's not listed in the 50 films they list. So I don't know what they're doing.
Mm.
So I don't know if the numbers just isn't as solid as Box Office Mojo, or in real life we just didn't keep track of things. We
Could
should
be.
be like France and other countries where they count ticket sales rather than the amounts of money made,
Sure.
because we already don't take into account for
Well, there's
a
a horse
movie's
race.
success.
There's a horse race culture, so they want to know money.
Right, but you look at like that's why we have to do inflation, because you look at something like Force Awakens makes that much money, but it technically made only a little bit more than the original Star Wars made if Star Wars were inflated, because Star Wars tickets cost like $2 to $3, whereas Force Awakens cost 15 for
Yeah, like
consumers.
I mean, if you go with inflation, Gone with the Wind's like the highest grossing movie. at one point.
Still, so with inflation for Oleanna, it made like 900,000.
Right.
Wow.
Not much of a difference.
No, but
So, picks of the month.
who do you think we should go with? There's not much here. We already mentioned Debra Eisenstadt has
Not
one
doing-
credit really to her name, so I think we figured we were going to go with William H. Macy. We could have done Mamet, but we wanted to have Cory talk about his love of the playwright, and he's more famous for his plays themselves than his films. Though he did score 2 Oscar nominations for writing The Verdict and Wag the Dog, which are not adaptations of his own shows, at least.
Yeah.
But there's not much out there that I think all of us have seen other than Cory.
Yeah.
So I think it's just easier to go with William H. Macy.
I know my pick.
Yeah. See, I know somebody's gonna pick this. but-
Maybe. My pick is not something anyone else will pick.
Although my pick, I'm trying to see if we would, theoretically, we might cover it. Oh my God, he was in that too. Oh my God, so many good choices.
He's a huge character actor, so this is
He
a
is.
perfect
He
choice
is.
for picks of the month.
This is,
Anyway, that's why I was excited to cover Oleanna, because this is probably the least known of all of his films.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, technically we would just make it. I'm gonna go with Mystery Men.
Okay.
Choice.
Good choice. He's one of
Uh,
the best parts of that movie.
Yeah. I shovel well. I shovel very well.
I'm stuck between 2 movies because one I know somebody's gonna pick, and the other one's kind of obscure, but he's not in it much. He's got one scene in the one movie, so I don't know if that counts.
What's that?
I was gonna say Wag the Dog, but
Oh, so
He's
he's
a-
actually in that. That's funny.
he's only got one scene. For William H. Macy though, as a starring role, I want to go Fargo.
hmm
That's kind of standard.
It is his signature role, probably.
Yeah. Absolutely. Other than
His obituary will say Fargo star William H. Macy.
yeah, or
Even with
Shameless,
Shameless, yeah.
Now I
Or
want to watch
College-
Shameless.
or College Scandal. William H. Macy, you wanted to bring that up.
I didn't want to bring it up. I just wanted to
wanted
see
to
if
bring it.
anyone brought it up naturally.
I
I
mean,
don't
he's
think
just in that new Planet of the Apes, so he's still
Yeah.
doing it.
He's going to be in the Running Man
You're right, man.
remake with Glenn Powell.
I might change my pick though, because I didn't realize he was in Marmaduke.
Oh, there you
Get
go.
out of here.
Well, anyway.
Yeah,
That's
you got
your own
you got
Wilson
something,
No,
Jimmy?
that's not. No, I'm still going with Mystery Man.
Yeah, so we got Mystery Man, Fargo. I can go if you don't have something, Jimmy. I know what you might pick.
Can I go
So
ahead
what-
anyways?
You can do it. I'm not going to do it.
Jurassic Park 3.
There you go.
There you go. Hey, I agree with that.
hmm
Oh, I think I know what Tristan's gonna pick.
Maybe. I want you to guess, because it might.
There's 2 options. One, Thank You for Smoking's one,
hmm
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
and then Pleasantville.
Great film.
That was-
First thing
that
I
was gonna
saw
be
him
mine.
in that I really recognized him in.
Yeah, that was good. That was
Um,
my second choice.
Yeah.
Funny story though. It's not a movie that I was going to go with.
What?
So he comes into Sports Night, a show that Felicity Huffman was a star in
Wow.
'98, and kind of steals the show, revitalizes it for enough to get it a second season. And he was nominated for guest actor in a comedy series for the Emmys. And he's probably the best. He has the best moments on that show, in my opinion. And it's maybe my favorite show.
Yeah.
So that's really the first thing I saw him in. And then Pleasantville. That's really where I started noticing him. So you were kind of right. If I had picked a movie, it probably would have been Pleasantville or Thank You for Smoking, honestly.
Tough.
So you are right. Though I also like him in Air Force One,
Yeah.
which I think I like more than a lot of people.
That's a fun movie.
Yeah. He's good in a lot of things, in some small roles, some huge roles. I'm glad he got a starring thing like Steve Buscemi did for Boardwalk Empire. He got Shameless for a decade. Though he kind of never got out of the look of Frank. He kind of looks raggedy now.
Well, you play a role for that long, that much intensity, it affects you physically.
It's part of his life.
Like how Hugh Laurie still has, a limp.
He's
He's still walking up to people giving his undiagnosed opinions on what their condition is.
Speaking of doctors, we're going to cover a professor again next month. Well, I don't think was ever actually a doctor, so I don't know if that segue applies, but maybe I just don't have the right amount of IQ to remember what Einstein did. Have you seen IQ?
No, but I've always wanted to, so finally
Hell
I have an
yeah.
excuse.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Exactly why I wanted to pick this movie. Yeah, it's basically a rom-com which Albert Einstein inserts
He's a
himself for some reason.
He's the matchmaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we'll wrap up 1994 with a lighthearted jaunt through Plainsboro and Princeton.
At one point, does Oppenheimer
Walking
come?
tour. Right.
Well, yeah, is Oppenheimer in IQ?
Could you imagine? But
Walking around the lake.
It's still Cillian Murphy somehow.
Yeah. He's
For
a time
him to
traveler.
split him? I don't think they have the necessary chemistry to get along.
That's good. All right. Remember to rate, review, subscribe. We'll see you next month for December 94.
Did you get the Pop-Tarts? Did you get the fucking Pop-Tarts? I sent you those fucking Pop-Tarts.
I ate the Pop-Tart.
You ate the Pop-Tarts.
No,
The
no.
Pop-Tarts that I sent you.
Yes.
You ate
Yes.
those fucking
Not a,
Pop-Tarts.
so
Yes.
you masticated the pastry to the
Of course
point
I did. And I
You
enjoyed it.
ruminated it beyond all
Goddamn
recognition.
enjoyed it.
The Pop-Tarts are FUBAR. They are no more.